So I made a post the other day that said there are no hitboxes, they're all gone. I wasn't joking about that. All the hitbox data in that big ugly switch statement I wrote is gone. Gone as hell. See, I vague post with the intent to tell you what I mean later, so you can go back and be like, oh, that makes so much sense now. But why would I delete all that code? It seemed to work fine. I mean, and yeah, technically it works, but that's like saying Congress technically works. That's like saying your grandma's hip technically works. Yeah, technically it does, but come on, let's be real. It sucked. It was so bad. If I kept having to work with that awful system, it wouldn't be long before I want to stick my head in a microwave. It had to go. So I deleted it all, and we're starting from scratch. And now this is what we're working with. I ditched that absurdly long switch statement for a robust, multifaceted, multinational, and unilaterally data-driven hitbox system. It uses arrays and structs. It has minimal if statement use, no switch statements, and was designed with ease of use in mind. It's also inspired by my favorite game of all time, Terraria. I was literally looking up Terraria modding tutorials so I could see how the projectile data is coded in that game, and I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense than whatever I was doing. I know nothing about modding Terraria, I just looked at their code and adapted it for my completely unrelated game. Anyways, let's look at how it works. So, when an O hitbox instance is created, it sets it with all of these default values, which is mostly 0, could be sometimes it's -1, which represents infinite, because that's just how it's coded. A hitbox created like this does nothing. And then in the create hitbox function, it overrides all of those default values with whatever is in the struct for the hitbox that's being created. Only the values that are written in the struct will be overridden. Everything else will remain the default values. It modifies the hitbox's stats depending on damage type or other special properties. And then it sends it on its way to do whatever it's supposed to do. By the way, the do nothing function, which I added just so that the game wouldn't crash when testing out attacks that didn't have a function, is actually really useful as a default behavior for when you want the hitbox to not do anything. All the hitbox's behaviors are defined in the struct for the respective hitbox. For example, the regular cut attack uses the melee hitbox AI, and when its animation ends, it destroys the hitbox. Or the crashing enemy hitbox runs the crash launch function when it's created. It uses the stick to enemy AI, and when it hits a surface, it runs the crash into wall function. And all these functions are neatly laid out in the hitbox functions script. Remember what I was saying in my last actual Gladius video about what makes a good data-driven system? The thing about a data-driven system is if it just uses structs and arrays and indexes items from these structs and arrays, and if you can just add one of these and it works, then it's well coded. If you have to add a bunch of other things along with this, then it's cringe. The system I have right now is it's kind of cringe, I'm not even gonna lie. I finally figured out how to make a system that's not cringe. Whenever I add a new hitbox to the hitbox's array, I basically have to change absolutely nothing about the O hitbox's code. All I have to do is assign it a hitbox function, write all this stuff in the struct, and it just works. like when I was coding the wooden arrow, I literally just wrote this whole line in like one go, pressed play, and tested it out, and boom, it worked perfectly on the first try. Occasionally, if some hitbox has like a unique behavior, then I'll have to write a new hitbox function. Like for bouncing dagger, I have to write bounce off wall, but I'm still trying to figure out like how to make it work. This is basically the bouncing dagger so far is the only hitbox that will probably use this. But I haven't had to edit any of this code since like last week. Every frame, the hitbox runs whatever AI function it has assigned to itself. Whether that be melee AI, which just makes it stick to whatever object that created it, or missile AI, which waits a certain amount of time before switching to homing AI, which homes in on whatever target it has assigned to it. Then, if its duration is greater than 0, it will decrement the duration, and if duration is equal to 0, it'll destroy itself. For multi-hit hitboxes, if its hit cooldown is greater than 0, it will decrement it, and if its hit cooldown is equal to 0, its hit list will be cleared, allowing it to hit any enemy it has already hit again. If it's touching the O solid object, it will run its on-hit surface function, whatever that may be. This is a weird thing that like is only used for some hitboxes that like where you throw your weapon, you need to go pick it back up. And then it just has like its basic movement stuff here, and all this runs every frame, and it's like 34 lines of code, which is so much shorter than whatever I had last time. I don't remember how long it was, but it was a lot of code. When the hitbox is destroyed, it runs whatever on-destroy function it has assigned, which could be to create an explosion at the point of impact, or to just allow the player to be able to attack again. Whenever it reaches the end of its animation, it runs whatever animation end function it has assigned, which for most hitboxes that use this, it's usually just destroy. Whenever a hitbox hits an enemy, it runs the universal on-hit function, which is for like just on-hit effects that everything uses, like for magic missile or burning blade or aquatic essence, and some hitboxes have their own unique on-hit effects. Like for the crash, it knocks the enemy back a bunch and creates the other crash hitbox, or for sickles, which inflicts bleed on enemies. And I also created an enumerator for all the hitbox IDs, and basically what this does is it just takes these labels and assigns numeric values to them. Like for example, cut is equal to 0, backstab is equal to 1, spin flash is 2, and it corresponds to the index of each of these structs. So like, and this is just for ease of use, because if you want like something to create, like let's say for example you wanted to create magic missile, so like this is creating hitbox number 23, but like what if you wanted to like create a magic missile, but like you don't know what, let's say you don't know what hitbox ID it has, you would have to go through this whole this whole array, counting each index starting from 0 all the way up to wherever magic missile is to figure out what ID it is. But like, why would you do that? That's annoying and that's stupid. So instead, you just put the hitbox ID in here, and then you just have it create hitbox IDs.magic missile, and whatever this is will automatically be the index of wherever magic missile is, assuming that the enumerator is in the same order as the array of hitboxes. It has to be in the same order, because if either the hitbox array or the hitbox ID's enumerator is out of order, you'll probably end up creating the wrong hitbox. And assuming you keep them both in order, this will always create a magic missile hitbox. The name variable is also just for ease of use. It doesn't serve any purpose other than just so you don't have to guess what hitbox this is. This system is already so much easier to work with than the system I had last time. I'm sure it's still not perfect, but I'm pretty proud of this. I think it did alright. I'm probably gonna rework enemies the same way. It's a good thing I only have 2 enemy types and not a whole list of enemies that I have to rework. I also want to show off some of the new attacks I've implemented. For the hammer, you have smash, which you jump up into the air and you create a large shockwave when you hit the ground. Like that. It uses a detector hitbox that doesn't damage enemies, but only detects when you hit the ground, so you can create the explosion hitbox. When I start implementing spells, one of the fire spells will use a similar ground detection hitbox. If you played Gladius Classic for free on my GitHub page, no account required, then you might know what I'm talking about. We also got Crash. This one is really interesting. What you do is you swing your hammer up, and it knocks the enemy way back, and any enemy that the flying enemy hits will also take damage, and then it'll take more damage when it hits a wall. Let me see if I can demonstrate that. Okay, never mind. He just dies. Hey, see that? That's pretty cool. For the axe, we got the standard chop, which just deals damage, and now we've also got the axe throw. I missed, but it deals a lot of damage. But I'm pressing left click right now, and I can't use my chop attack because I don't have my axe. It was stuck in the ground there. See it? Hold on. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to demonstrate it. So I can't use my attack, and now if I pick up, I can attack again. So the axe throw is supposed to be a really strong attack, and the downside is that you have to go pick up your weapon before you can use it again. Oh, and another thing, you might have saw it just now, but I've also been experimenting with hit stop for some of the attacks. Hit stop is a mechanic used in some games, mostly fighting games, where when you hit an enemy, the game will do a little freeze frame to make the hit feel more impactful. If you don't know, now you know. It's most prominent in the Enchanted Arrow attack, formerly known as the Piercer, but that was a boring name, so I changed it. Whenever you hit someone with the Piercer, there's a very short, like 5 or 6 frames of hit stop for each hit to really sell the impacts, unless they just die in one hit. Like that. Also, the axe weapon has a execute mechanic where if you hit an enemy that is at or below 20% of their max HP, they'll instantly die and trigger 15 frames of hit stop. It's just a little thing that makes the game feel better to play. So yeah, that's basically what I've been working on since I got home. I told you as soon as summer starts, Gladius is gonna go crazy. And it did. I'm surprised the dog let me record a whole video without yelling at me once. There it is. I don't think he's yelling at me though. Anyways, go play Gladius Classic.